The overhead projector hummed in the dim conference room as Lucas Thorne stood before 500 faces, some curious, some skeptical, all wondering how a man in grease-stained Carhartt pants had ended up at a podium flanked by banners reading Thorne Sterling Technical Academy. The microphone screeched feedback. He gripped the sides of the lectern, knuckles white. "When 50 people say something's impossible," his voice carried across the silence, "the 51st person needs to be either crazy or desperate." He paused, letting the weight settle. "I was both." 6 months earlier, those words would have sounded like fantasy. 6 months earlier, Lucas had been counting the last $7,200 in his register, staring at $28,000 in red-stamped invoices, wondering which utility company would shut him down first. The morning that changed everything started like every other morning in the 9 months since his father died. Lucas woke at 5:15 to the sound of his daughter's breathing through the thin wall separating their bedrooms. Harper, 8 years old, still slept with the nightlight on, had since the funeral. He dressed in the dark, pulled on yesterday's jeans, yesterday's flannel, walked downstairs through the apartment that sat above Thorne's Automotive like a second floor of debt. The shop floor smelled like motor oil and regret. Sunlight crawled through the bay windows, illuminating dust motes that danced over the workbench his father had built by hand in 1987. William Thorne had constructed it from reclaimed oak, each joint fitted so perfectly you could run your palm across the seams and feel nothing but smooth wood. Lucas ran his hand across it now, the same gesture he'd made every morning since the heart attack took his father without warning, without goodbye. The Ford F-150 on lift number 2 needed a fuel pump replacement. Third one this week. Lucas pulled the diagnostic scanner from its wall mount, connected the leads, watched the screen populate with data. Fuel pressure reading 0.2 psi below spec. Not enough to trigger the check engine light, but enough to cause the intermittent stalling the owner complained about. Most shops would have thrown parts at symptoms, replaced the throttle body, cleaned the MAF sensor, charged $300, and sent the customer away with crossed fingers. William Thorne had taught his son differently. "A mechanic who guesses is a con artist with a toolbox," his father used to say, usually while elbow-deep in an engine block, teaching Lucas the difference between diagnosis and divination. "You listen. The car tells you everything if you're patient enough to hear it." Lucas pulled the fuel pump relay, tested continuity. 12.6 volts on the supply side, exactly as it should be. He moved to the ground circuit, found corrosion on the connection point, green oxidation creeping across copper like moss on a gravestone. There was the problem. 15 minutes with a wire brush and dielectric grease, problem solved. He'd charge $60 for labor, maybe $70 if he itemized the diagnostic time. His father would have charged $50 and thrown in an oil change. The phone rang at 6:43. Lucas wiped his hands on a rag that hadn't been clean in weeks, picked up the receiver. "Thorne's Automotive." "Lucas, it's Dennis Carver." The name hit like cold water. Dennis Carver owned the Lexus dealership on Gratiot Avenue, had been bringing his personal vehicles to William for 12 years. Loyal customer, good tipper, the kind of client that kept a shop alive. "Morning, Mr. Carver. Your GX due for service." Silence on the line, the kind that carried bad news in its empty space. "Listen, Lucas, you're a good kid and your father was the best mechanic I ever met. But I'm going to start taking my cars to Stevens European over on Woodward." Lucas's grip tightened on the receiver. "Did I do something wrong with your last service?" No, nothing like that. It's just... Look, your dad had 30 years under his belt. He knew these luxury vehicles inside and out. You're what, 34? I need someone with that kind of experience touching a $90,000 SUV. The words your dad echoed in Lucas's skull. Every conversation ended there, circled back to the ghost in the workbench. "I understand, Mr. Carver. Thanks for calling." He hung up before the man could offer consolation. Fourth customer this month. 70% of his father's client base gone. Not because Lucas did bad work. His repairs were solid, his diagnostic skills sharp. But wealthy clients didn't want competence. They wanted the legend. They wanted hands that remembered when fuel injection replaced carburetors, when anti-lock brakes were cutting-edge technology, when a mechanic's reputation could be built on handshakes and grease-stained business cards. They wanted William Thorne. They got his son instead, and his son wasn't enough. Lucas walked to the small office his father had carved out of a storage closet, sat in the chair that still smelled faintly of Old Spice and motor oil, opened the ledger. Red numbers stared back. 28,000 in debt. 7,200 in the bank. Rent due in 11 days, 4,000. Utilities, 800. Insurance, 1,200. The equipment loan his father had taken out 6 months before the diagnosis, 3,000 a month, 16 payments remaining. The math didn't work. It hadn't worked since August. Footsteps on the stairs. Harper appeared in the doorway, hair in crooked pigtails, wearing the purple dress she insisted on wearing 3 days a week because Grandpa said purple was a brave color. "Morning, baby." She studied his face with those eyes that saw too much for 8 years old. "You're doing the sad face again." "Just tired, sweetheart. Didn't sleep great." "You said that yesterday." "I was tired yesterday, too." Harper crossed the office, climbed into his lap despite being almost too big for it, wrapped small arms around his neck. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and the lavender fabric softener Lucas bought because it was the same kind his mother had used before she left when Harper was 6 months old. "Grandpa used to make the same face when he looked at those papers," Harper said into his shoulder. "Then he'd tell me jokes until he smiled again." "Want me to tell you a joke?" Lucas held his daughter tighter. "Sure, baby. Hit me." "Why did the car get a job?" "I don't know." "Why?" "Because it needed to make some gas money." The joke was terrible. Lucas laughed anyway, the sound surprising him with its genuineness. "That's awful, Harper. Grandpa taught me. He said bad jokes were better than no jokes." Grandpa was a wise man. "Are we going to lose the shop, Daddy?" The question arrived without preamble, delivered in the same tone she might use to ask about dinner plans. Lucas froze. "Why would you ask that?" "Because Mrs. Patterson at school said her husband isn't bringing his car here anymore. She said it's because Grandpa isn't here to fix it. She said—" Harper hesitated, her voice dropping to a whisper. "She said you don't know what you're doing." Lucas's throat constricted. "Mrs. Patterson." "Daniel Patterson's wife. Daniel Patterson, who owned the Audi dealership on Telegraph Road, who had been bringing his personal S7 to William for oil changes and brake jobs since 2016. Another defector. Another vote of no confidence. "Mrs. Patterson doesn't know what she's talking about, sweetheart." "But she said—" "I know what she said, and she's wrong." Harper pulled back, searched his face. "You can fix anything right like Grandpa." The question hung between them, heavy with implications neither of them fully understood. Lucas thought about the Ford on Lift 2, about the corroded relay connection, about how easy it was to fix something when you knew what to look for. He thought about the Lexus he'd never see again, about the Audi that would now go to Stevens European, about the slow hemorrhage of trust that no amount of skill could cauterize. "I can fix most things, baby, but I can't fix what people think." "Then change what they think." "It's not that simple. Grandpa said hard things aren't impossible, just hard." Lucas kissed the top of her head. "Grandpa was right. Now go get ready for school. Bus comes in 20 minutes. She slid off his lap, paused at the door. "Daddy." "Yeah, sweetheart. Everything's going to be okay. I can feel it." She disappeared upstairs before Lucas could respond, leaving him alone with the ledger and the arithmetic of failure. The bell above the front door chimed at 8:17. Lucas looked up from the F-150's reassembled fuel system to see Raymond Sullivan walking through the entrance, moving with the careful gait of a man whose knees remembered 40 years of kneeling on concrete floors. Ray was 68, silver-haired, broad-shouldered, despite age's attempt to curve his spine. He'd worked alongside William for 3 decades, retired 5 years ago when his hands started shaking too badly to thread spark plugs. But he still stopped by twice a week, ostensibly to check on Lucas, actually to feel useful again. "Morning, kid." "Hey, Ray." The older man surveyed the empty bays, the silent lifts, the absence of work that used to fill this space like music. "Slow day. Slow month." Ray nodded, unsurprised. He'd seen the exodus firsthand, watched Lucas's inheritance crumble customer by customer. "Your old man built this place on reputation," Ray said, settling onto a rolling stool that groaned under his weight. Took him 10 years to get half the clients you lost in 9 months. Thanks for the pep talk. I'm not finished. He also taught you everything he knew. The skills are there, Lucas. What you're missing is time, and confidence, and maybe a miracle. Lucas wiped his hands on a shop towel. Fresh out of miracles, Ray. But if you know where I can buy some wholesale, I'm listening. The older man smiled, the expression carrying something Lucas couldn't quite identify. Knowledge, maybe, or mischief. Funny you should mention that. I heard something interesting yesterday at Sal's diner. Yeah. There's a woman coming to town. CEO type from New York, Victoria Sterling, runs some big investment firm, drives a Cadillac CT6V. Lucas shrugged. Good for her. She's been to every shop in the metro area. 50 mechanics so far. Kicked out 47 of them. Sued 3. Has a reputation for being... Ray paused, choosing words carefully. Difficult. And you're telling me this why? Because she called me last night, asked if I knew any mechanics in Detroit who weren't incompetent misogynists. Lucas set down the shop towel. Ray, I can't afford to take on a lawsuit. She won't sue you. How do you know? Because you're not going to treat her like the other 50 did. You're going to listen to her. Actually, listen. The way your father taught you. Even if I wanted to help, I've never worked on a CT6-V. Those things have twin-turbo V8 8-speed automatic magnetic ride control, I know. Ray leaned forward. They also have the same ECU architecture as the CTS-V you rebuilt last year. Same diagnostic protocols, same learning algorithms. Lucas hesitated. The CTS-V rebuild had been a nightmare, 3 weeks chasing an intermittent misfire that turned out to be a corrupted fuel trim table in the engine computer. But he'd solved it. Took apart the problem piece by piece until he found the ghost in the machine. Why would she come here? I'm nobody. You're William Thorne's son. I told her that. Told her your father was the best diagnostic mechanic in Detroit. Told her you inherited his patience. Did you tell her I'm broke, that I'm 3 weeks from foreclosure, that I told her you were honest, Ray interrupted. That's rarer than skill. The words settled into silence. Lucas looked around the shop at the empty bays, at his father's tools hanging in perfect order on their shadow boards, at the framed photograph on the wall showing William Thorne holding infant Harper, both of them grinning at the camera like the future was nothing but promise. When's she coming? Tonight, 9 o'clock, after she finishes terrorizing the last shop on her list. Tonight, Ray, I've got to get Harper to bed, make her dinner. She's 8 years old, not 3. She can eat mac and cheese and watch TV for an hour while you talk to a client. A client who's already been through 50 mechanics. 51's a better number anyway, divisible by 3 and 17. Lucas couldn't help smiling. That's your argument, numerology. Ray stood, joints popping in protest. My argument is this: you asked for a miracle. She's it. Woman with an unfixable car and deep pockets meeting a mechanic with bills to pay and something to prove. Either it works or it doesn't, but at least you'll know you tried. He headed for the door, paused with his hand on the frame. One more thing, Lucas. When she shows up, and she will show up, don't let her intimidate you. She's been disappointed by every man who touched that car. She's going to come in here expecting you to be disappointment number 51. Prove her wrong. How? Ray's smile widened. By being your father's son. Lucas spent the afternoon finishing the F-150 changing oil on a Chevy Silverado, trying not to think about 9 o'clock. He picked Harper up from school at 3:30, stopped at the grocery store for pasta and sauce, listened to her talk about fractions and recess politics and the book report due Friday. At home, he made dinner while she did homework at the kitchen table, her pencils scratching against paper in the same rhythm his father's had made while filling out repair orders. After dinner, he let her watch cartoons while he returned to the shop ostensibly to finish paperwork, actually to rehearse conversations he'd never have. What do you say to a CEO who's been through 50 mechanics? How do you convince someone to trust you when you're not sure you trust yourself? At 8:45, Harper came downstairs in her pajamas. I'm going to bed. I didn't tell you to. I know, but you keep looking at the clock. Someone important's coming, right? Lucas knelt to her level. Maybe. I don't know yet. Is it the car lady? How did you? Mr. Ray called earlier. He said to tell you 51 is a prime number too. Lucas laughed despite the tension coiling in his chest. Go to bed, sweetheart. I'll check on you in a bit. She hugged him, the gesture fierce and sudden. You can do anything, Daddy. Just like Grandpa. She released him and ran upstairs before he could respond, leaving him alone with that impossible faith. At 8:57, Lucas heard the engine. Not the rumble of a pickup or the purr of a sedan. This was something different, deeper, angrier. The sound of Italian engineering filtered through American luxury twin turbos, spooling with barely contained violence. He walked to the bay door, stepped into the September evening. The street was empty except for the pearl-white Cadillac CT6 Vive rolling toward him like a predator on wheels. Even from 50 feet away, Lucas could hear the irregularity in the exhaust. Note a slight hesitation, every third revolution, a hiccup in the rhythm that shouldn't exist in a vehicle this expensive. The car stopped directly in front of his shop. The engine shut off. The driver's door opened. Victoria Sterling emerged like an accusation made flesh. She was 42, Lucas guessed, though everything about her screamed ageless authority. Tailored black suit that probably cost more than his truck. Heels that added 4 inches to an already commanding height. Dark hair pulled into a ruthlessly efficient bun. She carried a leather briefcase that looked heavy enough to contain either legal documents or murder weapons. But it was her eyes that stopped Lucas cold. Not angry exactly beyond angry. These were eyes that had been disappointed so many times that rage had calcified into permanent skepticism. She approached without preamble, her heels clicking against pavement like a countdown. "Are you William Thorne?" Her voice could cut glass. "My father passed away 9 months ago. I'm Lucas Thorne." Victoria stopped 3 feet from him. Her expression cycled through disbelief, frustration, and something that might have been despair. "Of course he did." She laughed, but the sound carried no humor. "The legendary William Thorne is dead, and his replacement is some kid who probably calls his mother when he can't change a tire." Lucas took a breath. His father had taught him how to handle difficult clients. Stay calm. Stay professional. Never take the bait. "I'm 34, ma'am. Fully ASE, certified in automotive repair with specialization in—" "I don't care about your certifications." Victoria cut him off with a wave of her hand. "Certifications mean nothing. Results matter. How many Cadillac CT6 Vives have you worked on? Complete diagnostic repairs, not oil changes." The question hung between them, sharp as broken glass. Lucas could lie. Should lie, probably. Tell her he'd fixed a dozen, rebuilt 20, had the factory service manual memorized. But his father's voice echoed in his memory. A mechanic's reputation is built on trust, and trust is built on truth. This would be my first complete repair on that model. Victoria's eyes closed. When they opened again, something in her face had shifted, not softened but cracked slightly, revealing exhaustion beneath the armor. "Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I've wasted $400,000 on 50 mechanics who swore they knew what they were doing. Why not add one more failure to the collection? $400,000. The number landed like a physical blow. "Ma'am, if you've already spent that much, do you have a hearing problem?" "Yes, $400,000. The Cadillac dealership blamed my driving. The European import specialists said I was imagining the problem. 3 different mechanics suggested I should send my husband to deal with this." She stepped closer, close enough that Lucas could see the fatigue lines around her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands that suggested coffee and not enough sleep. "I don't have a husband. I have a company worth $2 billion that I built from absolutely nothing. But apparently I'm too female to understand what's wrong with my own vehicle." Lucas stood perfectly still, listening. Not formulating responses, not planning counter-arguments, just listening. "So here I am, mechanic number 51. Victoria's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. "Standing in front of a shop that looks like it's one missed payment from foreclosure, talking to someone who's never even seen the inside of my car's engine bay. Give me one reason why I shouldn't drive to the next shop and waste more time there instead." The question was genuine. Lucas could hear it beneath the hostility, actual curiosity, desperate hope disguised as challenge. He met her eyes. "Because I won't charge you anything unless I actually fix it." Victoria blinked. "What? You heard me? If I solve the problem, you pay me fair market rate for the work. If I fail, you owe me nothing. Not for parts, not for labor, not even for diagnostic time." "That's ridiculous. No one offers those terms." "I do." "Why? What's the catch?" Lucas took a breath. If he was going to gamble everything, honesty was the only ante that mattered. "I need this job. I'm 3 weeks from losing this shop, losing everything my father spent 30 years building. I have a daughter upstairs who thinks I can do anything, and every single day I'm terrified of proving her wrong." He gestured at the Cadillac. "You've got a car nobody can fix. I've got skills nobody trusts. Maybe we help each other. Maybe we both walk away from this with something we didn't have before." Victoria stared at him. The rage in her eyes flickered, shifted. Something else appeared behind it. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. "You're either incredibly brave or catastrophically stupid. My father used to say that's the Thorne family curse, being both." For a long moment neither spoke. Cars passed on the street behind them. Somewhere in the distance a train horn sounded its lonely warning. The Cadillac's engine ticked softly as it cooled metal contracting in the autumn air. "1 week," Victoria said finally, her voice different now, still hard but less sharp. "You have 7 days. If you haven't fixed it by then, you return my car and I find mechanic number 52. Fair enough? I'll come every day at 6 p.m. to check your progress. I want detailed reports. No technical jargon designed to confuse me. No vague excuses about parts on order." "Understood." Victoria reached into the Cadillac, pulled out a thick leather folder. She thrust it toward him. "This is everything. 50 diagnostic reports, 50 invoices, 50 different theories about what's wrong. Maybe you'll find something they all missed." The folder was heavy in Lucas's hands, months of frustration compressed into paper and ink. "Or maybe you'll just be failure number 51. Victoria handed him the keys. Her fingers brushed his palm, the contact brief but electric. "Don't call me ma'am. It makes me feel ancient. My name is Victoria." "Lucas." "I know. You said that already." She turned toward the street, raised her hand to hail a taxi that materialized as if summoned. "Lucas." He looked up. "If you damage my car, I will destroy you. I was a corporate lawyer before I became an investor. I've ended careers, I've bankrupted companies. Don't test me. I won't damage your car. We'll see." A taxi pulled to the curb. Victoria climbed in without looking back. The door slammed. The vehicle merged into traffic taillights, disappearing around the corner. Lucas stood alone on the sidewalk with a pearl-white Cadillac and 7 days to do the impossible. He started by reading every invoice, every diagnostic report, every theory from every mechanic who had taken Victoria's money and failed. The folder was a graveyard of guesses. Official Cadillac dealership direct injection system fault. Replaced all 8 injectors, $85,000. Stevens European specialists, ECU malfunction. Complete reprogramming with factory software. $60,000. Redline performance turbocharger boost leak. Replaced both turbos. $95,000. The list continued. Fuel pump. Oxygen sensors. Transmission control module. Wiring harness. Throttle body. Mass airflow sensor. Every component had been replaced, some twice. Every mechanic had found something different. Every mechanic had been confident they'd solved it. Every mechanic had been wrong. Lucas closed the folder, walked to the Cadillac. He didn't touch anything yet, didn't open the hood, just looked. The car sat in bay number 1 under the fluorescent lights, expensive and wounded. Through the windshield, Lucas could see the interior leather seats, carbon fiber trim, the kind of craftsmanship that justified a $120,000 price tag. But beneath the luxury, something was broken, something that 50 experts couldn't identify. He popped the hood. The engine bay was a monument to wasted money. Brand new injectors gleamed under the shop lights. Fresh turbos showed no signs of heat stress or oil contamination. New sensors sprouted from every mounting point like technological flowers. This engine had been practically rebuilt in the past 9 months, and that gave Lucas his first real clue. If they'd replaced nearly everything and the problem still existed, then the issue wasn't a failed component. It was something else, something systemic, something in how all those new parts communicated with each other. His father's voice echoed through memory. A car is a conversation between components. Every part is speaking. Your job is to listen. Lucas was still listening when small footsteps descended the stairs. He looked up to see Harper in her purple pajamas rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Daddy, it's almost 10. You didn't come check on me." "I'm sorry, baby. Lost track of time." Harper walked to the Cadillac, her eyes widening. "This is the prettiest car I've ever seen." "It belongs to a client, a very important client." "Is it broken?" "Yes. A lot of people tried to fix it and couldn't." Harper tilted her head in that gesture she'd inherited from William, curiosity mixed with concentration. "But you can fix it, right?" Lucas looked at his daughter's trusting face, at the absolute faith that lived in her 8-year-old certainty. "I'm going to try my best, sweetheart." "That's what Grandpa always said. He said trying your best was all anyone could do." She hugged him suddenly, fiercely. Lucas held her, breathing in strawberry shampoo and lavender softness. "I believe in you, Daddy." Outside the shop, Detroit continued its endless motion, traffic and noise, and millions of people unaware that inside a small automotive repair facility, a desperate father was staring at an impossible problem with nothing but inherited skill and borrowed time. But Harper knew, Harper believed, and sometimes belief was enough to start. Lucas woke at 4:30 the next morning with his father's diagnostic manual open on his chest and the certainty that he'd cracked the code. Not the solution, not yet, but the pattern. He'd spent 6 hours after Harper went to bed cross-referencing the 50 invoices, building a timeline of failures that revealed something none of the previous mechanics had seen. Every repair had been correct. That was the problem. Each mechanic had identified a legitimate issue: a failing injector, a lazy oxygen sensor, a turbo with compromised seals. They'd replaced the broken parts with functioning ones, collected their fees, sent Victoria on her way. But the symptoms returned within days, sometimes hours. New mechanics ran new diagnostics, found different problems, made different repairs. The pattern repeated 50 times because nobody asked the fundamental question: why were brand new components failing so quickly? Lucas pulled himself from the office chair where he'd fallen asleep, neck protesting the angle. Through the window, Detroit was still dark, the city holding its breath before dawn. He walked to the Cadillac, connected his diagnostic scanner to the OBD2 port beneath the steering wheel. The screen populated with current data. Fuel pressure normal. Oxygen sensor readings within spec. Turbo boost exactly where it should be. Every component reported healthy status, singing in perfect mechanical harmony. He scrolled to the historical fault codes, the ghost memory, where the car recorded every error it had ever encountered. The list stretched across multiple screens. 247 codes logged over 9 months. Lucas studied them chronologically, watching the story unfold. Code P0171 System, 2 Lean Bank 1. Logged 43,000 miles ago, shortly after a routine service. Someone had disconnected the oxygen sensor, reconnected it incorrectly. The car detected the error, began compensating, enriching the fuel mixture to correct what it perceived as a lean condition. But the compensation created a new problem. Too much fuel meant unburned hydrocarbons reaching the catalytic converters. The computer logged new codes, adjusted other parameters to protect the emission system. Each adjustment spawned new symptoms. The first mechanic saw those symptoms, replaced the oxygen sensor. New sensor, same problem. Because the computer's learned compensations remained embedded in its adaptive memory, continuing to correct for an error that no longer existed. The second mechanic saw different symptoms: hesitation, under acceleration. Diagnosed dirty injectors, replaced all 8. But the car's brain was still running corrupted logic tables, still trying to fix a ghost problem from 6 months earlier. 50 mechanics, 50 correct diagnoses of individual symptoms, 0 understanding of the underlying disease. Lucas leaned against the Cadillac's fender as understanding crystallized. This wasn't mechanical failure. It was digital trauma. The car's computer had been taught wrong layer upon layer until its learned behaviors became indistinguishable from malfunction. Like a person who'd been betrayed so many times they stopped believing in trust itself. He thought about Victoria's eyes, about the exhaustion beneath her anger, wondered if she recognized herself in this machine. His phone buzzed. Ray Sullivan texting at 5 in the morning like sleep was optional. "How's it going?" Lucas typed back. "Found the problem. Software, not hardware. Need to reset the ECU's adaptive memory." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Factory reset won't work. Need to wipe the learning tables manually. That requires dealer-level access." Lucas already knew. He'd spent 2 hours researching the procedure, found the official Cadillac documentation locked behind a $5,000 software license available only to authorized dealerships. The kind of barrier designed to keep independent mechanics dependent on corporate infrastructure. "I know someone who might help," Lucas typed. "Be careful. Whatever you're thinking, make sure it's worth the risk." The conversation ended there, leaving Lucas alone with the mathematics of desperation. He had 6 days remaining. No money for the official software, no access to dealer systems. But he had Garrett Walsh. Garrett answered on the 4th ring, his voice thick with interrupted sleep. "This better be life or death, Thorne." "It's career death. Does that count?" Silence on the line, then a long exhale. "What do you need?" "Access to the dealer diagnostic system. 6 hours, maybe less. Tonight." "You're asking me to risk my job." "I'm asking you to help me save mine." More silence. Lucas could hear television in the background, the murmur of late-night programming filtering through distance. "I work the overnight shift at Cadillac Heritage, 11 to 7. There's cameras everywhere, Lucas. Security logs. If anyone finds out I let you access that equipment." "Nobody will find out." "You can't promise that." Lucas gripped the phone tighter. "You're right, I can't. All I can promise is that if I don't fix this car, I lose the shop. Harper loses her home. Everything my father built gets auctioned off to pay debts I can't cover." Garrett was quiet for so long Lucas thought the connection had dropped. "My son turns 16 next month." Garrett finally said, his voice different now, softer, weighted. "He wants to learn the trade. Asked me last week if I could teach him." "That's great, man. You should—" "I told him I didn't have time. Truth is, I don't have the patience. I can turn wrenches, follow diagnostic trees, replace parts. But teaching someone to actually understand engines, that takes a different kind of skill." Lucas waited, sensing the shape of the offer before Garrett spoke it aloud. "You get me that laptop tonight. Use it from 11 to 5, 6 hours. But when you're done with this job, you teach my boy. 2 years every Saturday morning. No charge." The terms landed like an anvil. 2 years of unpaid labor, 100 Saturdays teaching someone else's kid while his own business struggled. "Deal," Lucas said without hesitation. "You're either crazy or desperate." "I told someone last night I'm both. Turns out it's the family business." Garrett's laugh carried no humor. 11 tonight. Employee entrance on the east side. Security changes shifts at 11:15. You'll have a 3-minute window when the cameras reset. I'll leave the laptop in locker 42. Combination is your birth year." "How do you know my birth year?" "Your dad told me once when he was training me. Said you were born the same year he opened this shop, 1990. The connection ended. Lucas stood in the pre-dawn darkness holding a phone and a plan that could destroy 2 careers if anything went wrong. Harper appeared at the top of the stairs, backlit by the apartment's overhead light. "You're up early, Daddy." "Couldn't sleep. Too much thinking." "About the pretty car." "About a lot of things, baby." She descended, still wearing her purple pajamas, her hair a tangled mess that would require serious brushing before school. "Are you going to fix it?" Lucas knelt to her level, took her small hands in his oil-stained ones. "I'm going to try something tonight. Something that might help. But I need you to do me a favor." "What kind of favor?" "I need you to stay with Mrs. Chen next door for a few hours, just while I work on something important." Harper's expression shifted, not quite suspicion, but close. "You never ask Mrs. Chen to watch me unless it's really important." It is really important, sweetheart. Is it dangerous? The question caught him off guard. How did an 8-year-old know to ask that? Not dangerous, just complicated. Harper studied his face with those eyes that saw through deflection. Grandpa used to say complicated was just another word for scared. Lucas pulled her into a hug, breathing her in strawberry shampoo and childhood innocence and faith he didn't deserve. Your grandpa was too smart for his own good. Are you scared, Daddy? He could lie, should lie, protect her from adult fears and financial ruin and the weight of inherited failure. Yeah, baby, I'm scared. Of what? Of letting you down, of losing Grandpa's shop, of proving everyone right who said I couldn't do this. Harper pulled back her hands on his shoulders. But you're going to try anyway. Yeah, I'm going to try anyway. She smiled, then the expression so pure it hurt to look at. Then you're already braver than being scared. Grandpa said that too. Victoria arrived at 6 p.m., exactly her Audi rental car pulling into the lot with German precision. She emerged wearing different armor than yesterday navy business suit instead of black hair down instead of pinned, but the exhaustion remained visible in the set of her shoulders. Lucas met her in the bay where he'd spent the day cleaning every electrical connection in the Cadillac's engine compartment. Tedious work, slow work. The kind of labor most shops skipped because it didn't generate billable hours. Victoria surveyed the organized chaos tools laid out in precise rows, wire brushes and contact cleaner lined up like surgical instruments, the engine bay gleaming under fluorescent light. You've been busy. Cleaning grounds and connections, making sure every electrical pathway is perfect before we start the real work. The real work being what exactly? Lucas gestured to his laptop where he'd pulled up the diagnostic data. Come look at this. She approached, stood close enough that he caught her perfume, something expensive that smelled like confidence in boardrooms. See these fault codes, 247 of them logged over 9 months. Victoria's jaw tightened. Every mechanic showed me fault codes. They used them to justify replacing expensive parts. They weren't wrong. The codes were real. The parts they replaced actually were failing. Then why? Because they were treating symptoms, not the disease. Look at the timeline. Lucas scrolled through the data chronologically, showing her how each repair spawned new problems, new compensations, new failures. It started here 9 months ago. Someone crossed an oxygen sensor connection during your 40,000-mile service. The computer detected the error, began adjusting fuel delivery to compensate. Those adjustments created new symptoms. The first mechanic fixed the immediate problem but didn't reset the car's learned behaviors. So the computer kept running its corrupted logic, creating new issues that the next mechanic tried to fix, which taught the computer new wrong information, which created more symptoms. Victoria's eyes tracked the cascade of failures. It's a feedback loop. Exactly. 50 mechanics fixed 50 real problems, but none of them addressed the underlying corruption in the computer's adaptive memory. She turned to face him fully. You're telling me my car has PTSD? The comparison was so perfectly apt that Lucas almost smiled. That's actually the best way to describe it. The original trauma is gone. All the faulty parts have been replaced. But the car's brain is still reacting to dangers that no longer exist. It's protecting itself from problems that aren't there anymore. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, her gaze distant. So what do you do for automotive PTSD? Same thing you'd do for any trauma. Reset the learned responses. Teach it how to function correctly from scratch. Which requires what? Here was the moment. The confession that could end this before it started. Factory-level diagnostic software, the kind that costs $5,000 and requires dealer credentials. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture, a subtle tensing like prey sensing predators. But you don't have that software. No. So this is where you tell me you need $5,000 to buy it, and I write you a check, and tomorrow you'll discover you actually need $10,000 for some other equipment, and I'm not asking you for money. That stopped her mid-sentence. Then what are you asking? For you to trust me. I have a way to access the software tonight. It's not entirely official, but it's not illegal either. It's a gray area." The words hung between them, honest and damning. Victoria studied him with an intensity that felt like being cross-examined. "You're asking me to let you use stolen equipment on my car. Borrowed equipment. From a friend who's putting his career on the line to help mine. Why would he do that? Because I promised to teach his son how to be a mechanic. Because he believes in second chances. Because sometimes people help each other for reasons that don't show up on a balance sheet." Victoria's laugh was sharp and brittle. "You really expect me to believe that you're risking everything out of the goodness of your heart?" Lucas met her eyes without flinching. "I expect you to believe that I'm desperate, that I have 6 days left and no other options, that this is the only way I know how to fix your car." The silence stretched. Outside traffic hummed past on Gratiot Avenue. Somewhere in the distance a siren wailed its urgent warning. "I spent 15 years as a corporate lawyer," Victoria said quietly. "I know gray areas. I've lived in them. Built a career navigating the space between legal and ethical, between what's allowed and what's right." She paused, something vulnerable flickering across her face. "I'm not shocked that you're willing to bend rules. I'm shocked that you're telling me instead of lying." Lucas nodded slowly. "My father taught me that a mechanic's reputation lives or dies on trust. You can't build trust on lies. Your father sounds like he was a better man than most." "He was, but he also died leaving me a shop full of debt and customers who don't believe in me. So maybe honesty isn't the most profitable strategy." Victoria almost smiled. Almost. "What happens tonight? Walk me through it." "I meet my contact at 11. Access the diagnostic system. Wipe your car's adaptive memory completely. Every learned behavior, every compensation, every corrupted table. Factory reset to 0. Then I drive it for about 50 kilometers following a specific learning protocol. Gentle accelerations, varied speeds, teaching the computer how all the new parts actually behave when they're working correctly." "How long?" 5, maybe 6 hours total. "And if something goes wrong, if you get caught accessing dealer equipment?" Lucas exhaled slowly. "Then my friend loses his job. I probably get blacklisted by every dealership in the metro area. And you're still stuck with a broken car and mechanic number 51 on your failure list." Victoria walked to the Cadillac, placed her hand on the hood like checking a fever. "My father was a mechanic," she said, her voice different now, quieter, weighted with memory. "Owned a small shop in Detroit. Nothing fancy. Just honest work for people who couldn't afford dealership prices." Lucas waited. "He died when I was 17. Heart attack, no warning. One day he was teaching me how to read a trouble code. The next day, he was gone." Her hand remained on the car, fingers spread across pearl-white paint. "I became a lawyer because I wanted power. Wanted to never feel helpless again. But sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I'd followed his path instead. If I'd learned to fix things instead of dismantling them." She turned to face Lucas. "He would have liked you, would have appreciated that you're being honest about the limitations. Most mechanics just make promises they can't keep. I can't promise this will work. I know, but you're promising to try. That's more than the other 50 offered." Victoria reached into her briefcase, pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back. "This is my cell number. Call me when it's done. I don't care what time." Lucas took the card. "What if it's 3 in the morning?" "Then it's 3 in the morning. I haven't slept through a night in 9 months anyway." She headed for the rental car, paused with her hand on the door. "Lucas." "Yeah." "Don't get caught. I've lost too many mechanics already. I'd rather not add you to the collection." Mrs. Chen arrived at 10:30, her arms full of cookies and concern. She was 72, widowed for a decade, treated Harper like the granddaughter she'd never had. "You're sure everything's okay, Lucas? You never ask for help unless something's wrong." "Just need to handle some work tonight. Shop business." Mrs. Chen's eyes narrowed behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Your father used to say the same thing when he was worried about making payroll." Lucas managed a smile. "Must be genetic." Harper appeared from upstairs, dressed for bed but radiating energy. "Can we make cookies, Mrs. Chen?" "At this hour, young lady, it's almost 11. "Please, the chocolate chip ones with the sea salt." Mrs. Chen looked at Lucas, who shrugged helplessly. When Harper deployed those eyes, resistance was futile. "Fine, but only one batch, and you're going to bed the moment they come out of the oven." Harper squealed, hugged Lucas goodbye with the casual certainty that he'd return. He held her longer than necessary, breathing in strawberry shampoo and innocence. "Be good for Mrs. Chen." "I'm always good." "Be extra good." She pulled back, searched his face. "Are you doing the scary thing now?" "Yeah, baby, I'm doing the scary thing." "Then be extra brave. Like Grandpa." Lucas drove to Cadillac Heritage dealership with his father's voice in his head, competing with doubt. The facility sat on the outskirts of Detroit, all glass and chrome and corporate money, the kind of place that made independent shops look like garage sales by comparison. He parked 3 blocks away, walked the remaining distance. His phone showed 11:13. Security would be changing shifts, cameras resetting a 3-minute window when the system prioritized continuity over surveillance. The East employee entrance was unmarked, accessible only by key card. Lucas waited in the shadows, watching the digital clock on his phone count down seconds. At 11:14, the door opened from inside. Garrett stood there, looking 10 years older than his 35. "You're late. Traffic." "The laptop's in locker 42. You've got until 5 a.m., not a minute longer." "I know." Garrett stepped aside, let Lucas enter the facility. The corridor was empty, fluorescent lit, smelling like new carpet and air conditioning. "Third door on the left, locker room. Combination is 1990. Lucas moved toward the indicated door. "Hey, Thorne." He turned back. "Yeah. Don't make me regret this. I'll do my best." "Your best better be enough." The locker room was deserted, rows of metal doors standing like sentries. Lucas found number 42, spun the combination lock. The door opened to reveal a laptop bag and a handwritten note. "System auto logs every 90 seconds. Don't stay connected longer than necessary. Good luck. G." Lucas grabbed the bag, made his way back through the empty corridors. The building felt enormous and hostile, every camera a potential witness. He reached the exit without seeing another person, stepped into the night air like surfacing from underwater. 3 blocks back to his truck. 10-minute drive to Thorne's Automotive. By 11:45, he had the laptop connected to the Cadillac's diagnostic port, the screen glowing in the darkened shop. The interface was different from anything he'd used before, complex, multi-layered, designed for technicians with factory training. Lucas navigated slowly, carefully following the procedure he'd memorized from stolen documentation. First, pull all current fault codes. The screen filled with data, hundreds of errors spanning months. Each code told part of the story: injector timing faults, oxygen sensor discrepancies, turbo boost deviations. The accumulated history of 50 failed repairs. He selected the option to clear all codes, historical and current. The computer hesitated, displayed a warning. "Clearing all fault memory will reset vehicle learning parameters. This operation cannot be undone." "Confirm." Lucas confirmed. 247 codes vanished, leaving empty space where chaos had lived. Next, access the adaptive memory tables. This was deeper territory. The car's subconscious: fuel trim adjustments, throttle response curves, turbo boost maps, all corrupted, all carrying the accumulated mistakes of 50 mechanics trying to fix symptoms instead of disease. The procedure required deleting each table individually. Long-term fuel trim deleted. Throttle adaptation deleted. Turbo learning values deleted. One by one, Lucas stripped away the car's learned responses, returning it to factory zero. A blank slate. An infant brain waiting to be taught correctly. 2 hours passed. Outside, Detroit slept. Inside the shop, Lucas worked with surgical precision, his father's ghost standing at his shoulder. The final step was the teaching drive, 50 kilometers, following a specific protocol designed to help the computer learn correct responses. He disconnected the laptop, started the Cadillac. The engine roared to life, smoother than before, but uncertain. Without its learned behaviors, the car was running on pure base programming. Functional but not optimized. Lucas pulled out of the shop into empty streets. 3 a.m. The city belonged to night shift workers and insomniacs. He followed the protocol exactly 5 minutes idling, letting the engine reach operating temperature. 10 minutes of gentle driving under 30 miles per hour, teaching the computer how to manage idle and low-speed operation. Gradual acceleration to 50, maintaining steady speed while the brain learned optimal fuel delivery. He drove past closed shops and dark houses, past the elementary school where Harper learned fractions and made friends, past the cemetery where his father rested beneath a granite headstone that read, William Thorne, 1958 to 2024. He fixed more than cars. The Cadillac purred beneath him, learning, adapting, becoming what it was meant to be. Lucas could feel the difference in how it responded. The hesitation gone, the power delivery smooth and immediate, like watching someone remember how to trust. At 4:30 he completed the 50-kilometer loop, returned to the shop, connected the laptop one final time to verify the new learning data. Every parameter showed green, every system operating within perfect tolerances. He packed up the equipment, drove back to Cadillac Heritage through streets beginning to show hints of dawn. The employee entrance was unlocked. Lucas slipped inside, returned the laptop to locker 42, left the same way he'd entered. Garrett was waiting outside, leaning against the building with his arms crossed. "Well, it's done. Did it work?" Lucas pulled out his phone, showed Garrett the final diagnostic screen. All systems normal, no fault codes, learning parameters, building correctly. Garrett studied the data, something like relief crossing his face. "Your dad would be proud, Lucas." "I hope so. I really hope so. Saturday morning starting next month. My son's name is Dylan. Don't go easy on him just because he's my kid." "I won't. Your dad went easy on you." Garrett laughed, the sound carrying exhaustion and something lighter. "Hell no. He made me rebuild a carburetor 7 times before he let me move on to fuel injection. Then Dylan gets the same treatment." They shook hands there in the parking lot, 2 mechanics sealing a deal that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with tradition. Lucas drove home as sunrise painted Detroit gold and pink. He parked in front of the shop, sat in the truck for a long moment staring at the building his father had built from nothing. Then he pulled out his phone, dialed Victoria's number. She answered on the first ring, her voice alert despite the hour. "Lucas, it's done. The car's ready." Silence on the line, then a sound that might have been crying or laughter, or both. "Did it work?" "There's only one way to know for sure. You need to drive it." "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Victoria, it's 5:30 in the morning." "I don't care. I've been awake for 3 hours anyway." The line went dead. Lucas climbed out of the truck, found Mrs. Chen asleep on his couch with a blanket pulled to her chin. Harper was upstairs, her breathing soft and steady through the thin wall. He made coffee strong and black, watched the street for headlights. Victoria's rental car appeared at 5:47, pulling into the lot faster than caution suggested. She emerged wearing jeans and a Georgetown sweatshirt, her hair pulled into a messy ponytail. No armor, no briefcase. Just a woman who'd spent 9 months being disappointed, afraid to hope one more time. Lucas met her in the bay where the Cadillac waited like a patient emerging from surgery. "The keys are in it. Start her up." Victoria approached the car, slowly reached for the door handle with trembling fingers. She slid into the driver's seat, turned the key. The engine started with a perfect roar, smooth, powerful, no hesitation, no irregularity. The sound that $120,000 engineering was supposed to make. Victoria's hands gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. "Drive it," Lucas said quietly. "Take it around the block. Get on the highway if you want. Push it." She looked at him through the open window, her eyes wet. "Get in." "What?" "Get in the car. I want you there when I find out." Lucas climbed into the passenger seat. The leather was soft, the interior smelling of luxury and possibility. Victoria pulled out of the shop onto Gratiot Avenue. She drove slowly at first, testing, waiting for familiar symptoms. They didn't come. She accelerated. The engine responded instantly, no hesitation, no loss of power. She merged onto I-94, pushed the speedometer up 70, 80, 90. The Cadillac flew eating highway with eager violence. "It's never done this," Victoria whispered. "Not once since the problem started. It always hesitated at high speed." "Keep driving." She did. For 30 minutes she pushed the car through every test, hard acceleration, hard braking, stop-and-go traffic on surface streets, a steep hill near Palmer Park. The Cadillac performed flawlessly, every system singing in perfect mechanical harmony. When they pulled back into the shop, Victoria was crying, not the angry tears of frustration she'd hidden for months, but something different. Relief, joy, gratitude. You did it. You actually did it. We did it. You told me the truth about what happened. That's what made the difference. Victoria turned off the engine, sat in silence that felt sacred. How much do I owe you? Lucas had spent the drive calculating. 20 hours of work at his standard rate of $75 per hour. $1,500. $1,500? Victoria laughed, a real laugh, full and genuine. You're joking. That's my rate for diagnostic and repair. Your rate is robbery in your favor. I spent $400,000 on 50 mechanics who accomplished nothing. You spent 2 days and actually fixed it. She pulled out her checkbook, wrote something, tore it free, handed it across the center console. Lucas looked at the number, $100,000. Victoria, I can't. You can and you will. This is what your work is worth. Not because of the hours. Because of the result, because of the integrity, because you told me the truth when you could have lied. It's too much. It's not enough. She reached over, closed his fingers around the check. Take it. Pay your rent. Buy Harper something she doesn't need, and know that you earned every penny. Lucas stared at the check, 6 figures that would save the shop, catch up every bill, give Harper security. There's something else, Victoria said. I want you to be my exclusive mechanic. Every service, every repair, only you. Victoria. And I'm going to recommend you to everyone I know. You're going to be very busy very soon. I hope you're ready. Lucas thought about his father, about the legacy he'd been terrified of losing, about Harper upstairs, believing in him when he couldn't believe in himself. I'm ready. Good. Because this is just the beginning. They sat in the Cadillac as morning light flooded the shop, 2 people who'd found each other at exactly the right moment of mutual desperation. Then Victoria's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her expression hardening. I have to take this, she answered, her voice shifting instantly to corporate mode. Donovan, it's 5:30 in the morning. No, I'm not at the apartment. That's none of your business. The board meeting is tomorrow, I'm aware. We'll discuss this later. She hung up. But something had changed in her posture, the armor reconstructing itself piece by piece. My brother. He's calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow. Wants me removed as CEO. Can he do that? He's been building support for weeks. Claims I'm distracted, making emotional decisions, compromising the company. Victoria's jaw tightened. He's going to use you as evidence. The 100,000. He'll say I gave away company money to a man I barely know. Lucas felt ice crystallize in his chest. That check was personal, not corporate. Your money, not the company's. Doesn't matter. He'll make it look improper. Make you look like you're taking advantage of me. Then I won't cash it. No. Victoria's voice was steel. You earned that money. I'm not letting Donovan turn your honesty into a weapon. She met his eyes. But I need you to understand something. This is about to get ugly. My brother doesn't fight fair. He's going to come after me, and when he does, you'll be collateral damage. Lucas thought about Harper, about the shop, about everything they stood to lose. Then we fight back. This isn't your battle. It is now. You said yourself we're in this together. Victoria studied him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. Why are you doing this? You have what you need. The money. The car fixed. You could walk away. Lucas remembered his father's hands, scarred, calloused, capable of fixing anything mechanical but helpless against the heart attack that killed him. Remembered the funeral, standing beside Harper while she cried into his shirt, promising her everything would be okay, even though he had no idea how to make that true. Because men who walk away when things get hard don't deserve to call themselves their father's sons. The words hung in the morning air, simple and final. Victoria nodded slowly. Then I guess we'd better figure out how to win. The black BMW arrived at Thorne's Automotive 3 days after Lucas fixed Victoria's Cadillac. Lucas was alone in the shop finishing an oil change on a customer's Silverado when he heard the aggressive purr of German engineering pulling into the lot. The driver sat motionless for 30 seconds before emerging a man in his mid-40s wearing a suit that cost more than Lucas's monthly rent. Tailored charcoal wool Italian shoes, a watch that caught sunlight like a threat. He walked toward the bay with the casual confidence of someone who'd never been told no. Lucas set down his tools, wiped his hands. "Can I help you?" The man stopped just inside the entrance, surveying the shop with undisguised disdain. "You're the mechanic, Lucas Thorne." Not a question, an accusation. "That's right. And you are Donovan Sterling, Victoria's brother." The name landed like a punch Lucas had been expecting but still wasn't ready for. He studied the man, saw Victoria's bone structure, her dark eyes, but none of her hard-earned wariness. Donovan carried privilege like armor, the kind that came from inheritance rather than survival. "What can I do for you, Mr. Sterling?" Donovan stepped closer, his shoes clicking against concrete that still bore oil stains from Lucas's father's era. "You can stay away from my sister." Lucas crossed his arms. "That's not your decision. I think you misunderstand the situation. Victoria's not thinking clearly. She's been obsessed with that car for 9 months, burned through $500,000 chasing a problem that probably didn't exist. And now suddenly she's throwing $100,000 checks at some small-time mechanic. That's not rational behavior. The problem existed. I fixed it. She paid me for the work." "You fixed it." Donovan's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Convenient that after 50 real mechanics failed you with no credentials, no reputation operating out of this." He gestured at the shop. Glorified garage somehow succeeded where everyone else couldn't. Lucas felt anger building in his chest, forced it down. "I succeeded because I listened, because I treated the disease instead of symptoms. Your sister's car had adaptive memory corruption spanning 9 months. Every previous mechanic. I don't care about the technical details. I care about my sister making decisions that compromise her position. The board already has concerns about her judgment. This doesn't help. Then maybe the board should focus on her track record instead of one business transaction." Donovan's expression shifted, something colder emerging. "I've done research on you, Mr. Thorne. Your shop is 3 weeks from foreclosure. You're carrying $28,000 in debt. Your father died, leaving you a business you're clearly incapable of managing. And now here comes my sister, vulnerable, exhausted, desperate for someone to solve her problem. And you see an opportunity. That's not classic con. Manufacture a crisis, swoop in as the hero, exploit the victim's gratitude. I've seen it 100 times in corporate litigation. The only difference is you're using wrenches instead of briefcases." Lucas's hands curled into fists at his sides. "Get out." Donovan didn't move. "I have lawyers, Mr. Thorne, good ones. I can have every regulatory agency in Michigan investigating this shop by Friday. Business licenses, tax compliance, environmental permits. I can have your ASE certifications reviewed, your insurance policies audited. I can make sure you never work on another vehicle in this city. Get out of my shop. I'm trying to save you from yourself. Return the money. Disappear from Victoria's life. And maybe I'll let this go. But if you continue down this path, I promise you'll regret it." Lucas stepped forward close enough to see his own reflection in Donovan's expensive watch. "You think you can intimidate me, threaten my livelihood? I've spent 9 months watching everything my father built fall apart. I've held my daughter while she cried about losing her home. I've counted pennies wondering which bill to pay first. You want to know what's different between us? I'm already living in the wreckage. You're just visiting." Donovan's jaw tightened. Tough talk from someone with everything to lose. No. Tough talk from someone who's got nothing left to lose. Big difference. For a moment they stood facing each other, two men separated by wealth and circumstance, but united by their willingness to fight for what they believed belonged to them. "This is your last warning, mechanic. Thanks for stopping by, Mr. Sterling. Don't let the door hit you on the way out." Donovan turned, walked to his BMW with measured steps. The engine roared to life. He reversed out of the lot fast enough to leave rubber on the pavement, a parting middle finger in automotive form. Lucas stood in the bay doorway long after the BMW disappeared, his heart hammering against his ribs. The confrontation had lasted maybe 5 minutes. The consequences would last considerably longer. His phone buzzed. Victoria. Donovan just called. Said he spoke with you. What happened? Lucas typed back. He threatened to destroy my business if I don't disappear. 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. I'm coming over. We need to talk. Victoria arrived 40 minutes later in the Cadillac, driving it for the first time since Lucas had fixed it. She emerged looking like she'd aged a decade in 3 days, her suit rumpled hair pulled back in a careless ponytail, shadows under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. He actually came here, made it very clear he thinks I'm running a con, said he'd bury me in regulatory investigations if I don't return your money and vanish. Victoria paced the shop floor, her heels clicking against concrete in an erratic rhythm. That's exactly what I was afraid of. Donovan doesn't make idle threats. If he says he'll investigate you, he will. And he'll find something, he always does. Even if you're completely legitimate, he'll manufacture problems. So what do you want me to do? Return the check. She stopped pacing, faced him. No, absolutely not. You earned that money honestly. I'm not letting him turn your integrity into a weakness. Then what's the plan? Victoria pulled out her phone, showed him an email. The subject line read, Emergency Board Session, Sterling Capital Group, tomorrow 2 p.m. They're voting on whether to remove me as CEO. Donovan's been building this case for weeks. Claims I'm compromising the company with emotional decisions. The $100,000 to you is just ammunition. Lucas read through the email corporate language that barely masked a coup. Can they actually fire you? I own 40%. But if Donovan gets the other board members to unite against me, he can make my position untenable. Force me out, install himself as interim CEO, restructure the company to dilute my voting power. That's legal. It's complicated. Corporate governance is a chess game played with lawyers, and Donovan's very good at chess. Victoria sat heavily on a rolling stool, exhaustion momentarily overwhelming her armor. The irony is that I've never been clearer about what I want. For 15 years I built that company into something I'm proud of. But somewhere along the way I forgot why I was doing it, forgot that success is supposed to mean something beyond quarterly earnings. Lucas pulled up another stool, sat facing her. So tell them that. Explain why you're making different choices. You think they'll listen? A room full of men who've spent their careers measuring everything in profit margins and shareholder value. They don't care about meaning. They care about returns. Then maybe you're talking to the wrong audience. Victoria looked up. What do you mean? Donovan's strategy is fighting you behind closed doors in board meetings where he controls the narrative. What if you change the battlefield, go public? Tell your story before he can tell his version. You mean a press conference? Why not? You're a billionaire CEO stepping down to pursue something more meaningful. That's news. Human interest. The kind of story that makes people pay attention. Victoria shook her head. That's career suicide. If I go public and the board still votes against me, I lose all leverage. And if you stay quiet, Donovan controls the narrative anyway. At least this way you get to speak first. She studied him with an expression Lucas couldn't quite read. You're suggesting I burn bridges I might need later. I'm suggesting you build new ones instead. You told me yourself you're done living by their rules. Prove it. The silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. I'd need help. Media contacts, messaging strategy, someone who understands corporate optics. You have lawyers, right? Advisors. Margaret Holland, she's been my attorney for 12 years. Knows where all the bodies are buried because she helped bury half of them. Victoria pulled out her phone, dialed a number. Margaret, it's Victoria. I need you at my office in 2 hours. No, not for the board meeting. For something that's going to make the board meeting irrelevant. Yes, I'm serious. I'll explain when you get here. She hung up, looked at Lucas. This is insane. You know that, right? Probably. but doing the same thing you've always done gets you the same results. Sometimes insane is just another word for necessary." Victoria almost smiled. "My father used to say something similar. Safe choices make safe lives, and safe lives aren't worth living." Smart man. He was a mechanic in Detroit. Died when I was 17. Heart attack while replacing a transmission. Customer found him an hour later. The detail hit Lucas harder than he expected. Another father, another shop, another legacy interrupted. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He lived doing what he loved. That's more than most people get." Victoria stood, straightened her rumpled suit. "I should go. Meeting Margaret, figure out how to commit professional suicide in the most spectacular way possible." "Victoria." She paused at the bay door. "Yeah. Whatever happens tomorrow, you're making the right choice. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you want something different." She held his gaze for a long moment. "I hope you're right, Lucas, because if this goes wrong, we both lose everything." The press conference was scheduled for 1 p.m. the next day, exactly 60 minutes before the board meeting. Margaret Holland had worked overnight setting it up, calling in favors from journalists she'd fed stories to for years. The location was the lobby of Sterling Capital Group's headquarters, a deliberate choice, holding the announcement in Donovan's territory. Lucas wasn't invited, but Victoria called him at 11 a.m. "I need you there." "Victoria, I'm a mechanic. I don't belong at a corporate press conference. You're the reason I'm doing this. You reminded me that integrity matters more than optics. I want you in the room." "Donovan will use it against you." "Let him try. I'm done hiding relationships because they might look bad to people who've never built anything themselves." Lucas arrived at Sterling Capital at 12:30 wearing the only suit he owned, the one he'd bought for his father's funeral, already too tight across the shoulders. The building was all glass and steel, the lobby dominated by a 3-story waterfall that probably cost more than Lucas's entire block. Security tried to stop him at the entrance until Victoria appeared, waved him through. "You came." "You asked. Although I feel like a grease stain on your marble floors." "Good. This place could use more grease stains and fewer people who've never gotten their hands dirty." Margaret Holland materialized beside them, a woman in her 60s with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many boardroom battles to be impressed by anything. "Victoria, the press is set up in Conference Room A. We've got Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, local business outlets." Donovan knows something's happening but doesn't know what. He's upstairs with the board, probably having a stroke. "Perfect. Let's give him something worth stroking about." They walked through corridors lined with photographs of Sterling Capital's history. Victoria shaking hands with presidents, ringing the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange, accepting awards from business magazines. A chronicle of success that was about to be recontextualized. Conference Room A was packed with reporters, cameras, microphones. Lucas stayed at the back while Victoria took the podium. She'd changed into a navy dress, simple and elegant, wearing her father's old watch instead of the Patek Philippe she usually favored. The room quieted. Victoria gripped the podium's edges. "Thank you for coming on short notice. I know there's been speculation about what's happening at Sterling Capital. I'm here to give you the truth." She paused, gathering herself. 3 days ago, my brother Donovan threatened the man who fixed my car. Told him to return my money and disappear from my life or face regulatory investigation designed to destroy his business. Murmurs rippled through the press corps. "Why would he do that?" "Because I paid this mechanic $100,000 for work that 50 other mechanics couldn't accomplish. Because my brother believes that payment demonstrates poor judgment. That I'm being manipulated by someone taking advantage of my vulnerability." Victoria's voice strengthened. "I want to address that claim directly. For 9 months I dealt with a car that kept breaking down. I took it to 50 different mechanics, 50 experts who charged hundreds of thousands of dollars and accomplished nothing. They patronized me, dismissed my concerns, suggested I didn't understand engines because I'm a woman." She gestured toward the back of the room. "And then I met Lucas Thorne. He's a single father who inherited his shop 9 months ago when his father died suddenly. He was weeks from foreclosure because wealthy clients didn't trust someone his age with expensive vehicles. He had nothing except skill, patience, and the integrity to tell me the truth even when lying would have been easier. Every camera swiveled toward Lucas. He forced himself not to look away. Lucas fixed my car in 2 days, solved a problem 50 experts couldn't because he listened instead of assumed, because he treated the underlying disease instead of just symptoms. And yes, I wrote him a check for $100,000 because that's what honest work is worth when everyone else is selling you lies. A reporter raised her hand. Ms. Sterling, does this mean you're fighting your brother's attempt to remove you as CEO? Victoria's smile was small but genuine. No, I'm doing something better. I'm resigning. Effective immediately. The room erupted. Victoria raised a hand for silence. I've spent 15 years building Sterling Capital into a company worth $2 billion. I'm proud of that. But I'm not proud of the person I became while doing it. I forgot that success should mean something beyond shareholder value. I forgot what my father taught me about work mattering more than wealth. She pulled papers from the podium. This morning I filed incorporation documents for the Thorne Sterling Technical Academy, a non-profit organization that will train mechanics, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, people who build things that actually matter. We'll offer full scholarships to anyone who demonstrates commitment and hunger. Lucas will help design the curriculum. I'll provide the funding and administrative infrastructure. Victoria looked directly at the cameras. My father never made more than $40,000 a year, but he taught me that real success isn't measured in bank accounts. It's measured in whether you can look at what you built and feel proud. For 15 years I couldn't honestly say that. Lucas reminded me what pride actually looks like. Her voice dropped lower. Donovan will tell you I'm having a breakdown, that I'm throwing away my career for a man I barely know. The truth is simpler. I finally found the courage to admit, I want something different, something that matters. And if my brother wants to fight me for that, let him try. Because I'd rather lose everything building something meaningful than spend another day protecting wealth that means nothing. The press conference dissolved into chaos, questions shouted over each other, cameras pushing forward, reporters demanding details. Margaret ran interference while Victoria made her way to the back of the room to where Lucas stood against the wall. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the craziest. Maybe both. Seems to be our theme. Before Lucas could respond, he heard a familiar voice cutting through the noise. Daddy. He turned. Harper stood in the doorway wearing her school backpack, Mrs. Chen hovering behind her with an apologetic expression. She saw the news alert on my phone, insisted we come. I couldn't say no. Harper ran to Lucas, wrapped arms around his waist. They said mean things about you on the internet. Said you tricked the car lady. Lucas knelt to her level. Baby, you're supposed to be at school. Mrs. Chen got me excused. This is more important than fractions. Victoria stepped forward, knelt beside Lucas, so she was eye level with Harper. Hi, you must be Harper. Your dad's told me a lot about you. Harper studied Victoria with the intensity of an 8-year-old who'd learned not to trust easily. You're the car lady. That's right. And I want you to know something. Your dad is the most honest person I've met in 15 years. Those people saying mean things, they're wrong. Your father didn't trick me. He saved me. Harper's eyes welled up. But Mrs. Patterson said, Mrs. Patterson is wrong too. Your dad has more integrity in his calloused hands than most people I've worked with have in their entire bodies. Don't ever let anyone make you doubt him. Victoria reached into her purse, pulled out a photograph, a younger version of herself standing beside a man in coveralls, both grinning in front of a small garage. This is my father, Daniel Sterling. He was a mechanic too, taught me that honest work matters more than impressive titles. He would have loved your dad. Harper touched the photograph gently. My grandpa taught me the same thing. He said doing it right was more important than doing it fast. Then our grandfathers would have been friends. Something passed between Victoria and Harper, recognition, understanding. Two people who'd both lost fathers learning to trust each other through shared grief. Can you be my aunt? Harper asked suddenly. Victoria's eyes widened. I'd like that very much, if your dad says it's okay. Harper looked up at Lucas. Can we keep her, Daddy? Lucas felt his throat constrict. Yeah, baby, we can keep her. The board meeting happened without Victoria. Donovan tried to proceed with the removal vote anyway, but Margaret had already filed the resignation paperwork that morning. The motion became legally moot. By 4 p.m., Victoria Sterling was no longer CEO of the company she'd built from nothing. By 4:30, every major business publication was running the story not as a scandal, but as inspiration. Billionaire walks away from fortune to teach trades rejected by family, but embraced by mechanic and his daughter. Donovan released a statement claiming Victoria's behavior proved his concerns about her mental state. The board members who'd supported him started distancing themselves within hours. By the end of the week, 3 had resigned. Within 2 weeks, Donovan himself faced removal proceedings. But Lucas barely followed any of it. He was too busy answering phone calls, 17 clients in the first week after the press conference. Victoria's colleagues, friends, people who'd read the story and wanted to support the mechanic who'd reminded a CEO about integrity. Money started flowing instead of hemorrhaging. Lucas paid off the overdue rent, caught up on utilities, made equipment payments his father had fallen behind on. He bought Harper new shoes and started a savings account for her future. Ray Sullivan came back part-time, moving slower but still steady. Garrett's son Dylan started Saturday training sessions, learning the difference between fixing symptoms and solving problems. And every evening at 6, Victoria showed up, sometimes in the Cadillac, sometimes in a rental car, once on foot after traffic trapped her driver. She'd sit on the rolling stool that became hers, drink terrible coffee talk about the academy they were building together. Ray donated warehouse space he'd bought years ago as an investment. Victoria hired architects and contractors. Lucas spent weekends sketching workshop layouts, deciding which tools were essential. Harper designed the logo, a wrench crossed with a diploma. She insisted on purple in the color scheme. Grandpa's brave color. 4 months after the press conference, they broke ground on the Thorne Sterling Technical Academy. The ceremony was small. Lucas, Victoria, Harper, Ray, Margaret, and a handful of reporters who'd followed the story from confrontation to collaboration. Lucas gave a speech he'd written on a napkin. My father built his first workbench when he was 16, used scrap wood and bent nails because he couldn't afford better. That bench is still in my shop, still functional, still teaching that quality matters more than appearances. He paused. This academy isn't about producing mechanics. It's about producing problem solvers. People who understand that real success isn't measured in bank accounts. It's measured in whether you can look at what you built and feel proud. He looked at Victoria. My partner walked away from $2 billion to help build this. Some people think that's crazy. I think it's the sanest decision anyone's made in years. 6 months later, the academy opened with 23 students. Single mothers, former factory workers, high school dropouts, people. The traditional education system had failed. Each selected for hunger rather than credentials. Lucas taught diagnostics himself. Victoria handled fundraising. Harper became the unofficial mascot, quoting her grandfather's wisdom to students twice her age. Within 3 months, their first graduate opened her own shop. Within 6 months, another became lead technician at a racing team. Success stories multiplied like compound interest. One evening, 9 months after the academy opened, Victoria found Lucas in the workshop. He was teaching a class on electrical systems, his hands gesturing through explanations the way his father's had. She waited until the students left before approaching. I have something to tell you. Lucas set down his multimeter. Yeah. The board officially voted Donovan out today, restructured the company completely. They offered me the CEO position again. Lucas's chest tightened. What did you say? I said no, recommended they promote someone who actually wants to run an investment firm. I'm exactly where I want to be. She stepped closer. But there's something else. Harper asked me this morning if we were going to get married. Lucas blinked. She what? Said it was obvious we're building a family. Asked when we're making it official. That kid has no filter. She's not wrong, though. Victoria took his hands. We are building something, not just an academy, a life, a family. Lucas pulled her close. Yeah, we are. So, what do you think? About what? About making it official. about not just building a family but actually being one. Lucas thought about his father, about the workbench made from scrap wood, about Harper upstairs doing homework, about the legacy that kept growing because people kept showing up. "I think my daughter's smarter than both of us combined." Victoria laughed. "Is that a yes?" "Yeah, that's a yes." The wedding happened a year after the academy opened, small and deliberate. 80 people in the academy's courtyard between the classroom building and the workshop. Ray walked Victoria down the aisle since her father couldn't. Margaret officiated. Harper served as maid of honor in her purple dress, the same one she'd worn to her grandfather's funeral, repurposed for joy. The vows were brief. Victoria went first. "I spent 15 years measuring success in numbers that meant nothing. You taught me the only metric that matters, how many lives are better because you existed. I promise to show up when things are hard, to listen when you need to be heard, to build something worth building every single day." Lucas's turn. "My father said good work requires patience, that shortcuts lead to callbacks, that doing it right matters more than doing it fast. I promise to be patient, to take no shortcuts in how I love you, to spend my life doing this right." They sealed it with a kiss that tasted like coffee and possibility. The reception was barbecue and beer and music from a Bluetooth speaker. Students gave toasts ranging from sentimental to inappropriate. Ray told stories about William Thorne that made people laugh and cry simultaneously. As evening came, Lucas found himself standing beside his father's workbench, the one they'd moved to the academy lobby and preserved behind glass. Victoria appeared beside him, still in her wedding dress. "What are you thinking?" "That none of this makes sense. 9 months ago I was broke and terrified. Now I'm married to you, running an academy teaching people skills my father spent 30 years perfecting. Makes perfect sense to me." "Only if you measure sense in something besides logic." Victoria leaned against him. "My father used to say the best decisions seem crazy until they work. Then they seem inevitable." They stood watching through the glass as Harper taught a younger student proper wrench technique, correcting his grip with the patience of someone who understood that teaching was its own form of building. "You know what the best part is?" Lucas said. "What?" "We get to wake up tomorrow and keep going, keep teaching, keep proving that skill and integrity matter more than any credential." Victoria kissed his cheek. "That's what we're building, not just an academy, proof that there's still space for people who care more about doing right than doing well." Ray approached. "You two going to philosophize all night or enjoy your wedding? Can't we do both?" Ray pulled an envelope from his jacket. "Your dad wrote this 6 months before he died. Asked me to give it to you when the time was right. Figure your wedding qualifies." Lucas opened it carefully. His father's handwriting. For Lucas, when he figures it out. "Son, if Ray's giving you this, you finally understand what I tried teaching you since you could hold a wrench. It's not about cars, never was. Cars are just how we practice integrity. The shop will survive or it won't, but your character is the only thing you truly own. Build it carefully, protect it fiercely, pass it forward. I'm proud of you, not for what you accomplish, for how you accomplish it. That's the only legacy worth inheriting." Dad Lucas read it twice, then showed Victoria. She cried, reading it. "He knew," Lucas whispered. "Of course he knew," Ray said. "William understood people better than engines, and he understood engines better than anyone." Harper ran over, pulling a younger boy by the hand. "Daddy, can we show Michael the diagnostic bays?" Lucas knelt, pulled his daughter close. "Yeah, baby. Show him whatever you want. This is your academy, too." "Our academy," Harper corrected. "Yours and Victoria's and mine and everyone who learns here. Grandpa said the best things belong to everybody who cares about them." She ran off before Lucas could respond. Victoria offered her hand, pulled him to his feet. "Come on, Mr. Thorne. Let's go teach some kids how to change the world." They walked back into the reception together, toward noise and light and the community they'd built from failure and faith. Behind them, through the lobby glass, William Thorne's workbench stood silent, not a monument to what was lost, but to what endured. A reminder that quality outlasts everything, that integrity compounds across generations, that showing up when things are hard is the only credential that truly matters. The work continuing, the legacy growing, the family expanding one honest repair at a time.